In today's, let's call it first ever real episode of Not Another Impact Report, George and I had the pleasure of speaking with Adam Souza, and we spoke about favelas, Rio, and what it means to be from a favela. Adams, yeah, irmão. It's so good to see you here. We're so excited to be talking with you today. And probably our first official podcast, let's say. George and I did film one before, just between he and I. So the fact that our first official guest is you, somebody who's been with SEJA since the beginning, represents so much of our fight, our work, our values, our mission. It's just a pleasure to have you here. A good friend, somebody who I just admire for creating a safe place for curiosity. You know, I appreciate the fact that we've spent so many long nights having vulnerable conversations, and I always feel like I can just ask whatever I want to ask without being judged. And it's just so amazing that you're open and willing to teach and learn and curiosity. And so I really appreciate that about you. I'm excited to have this conversation today, and I hope that we can bring some of that curiosity and openness to our talk today. And of course, I've got George here as well, my co-founder. And this time he's on this side of the camera with me, like quote unquote this side. He's going to be asking some of the questions with me. George, I don't know if there's anything that you would like to talk or to get off your chest before we dive into the questions with Adams.
No, I think just to echo what Dylan said, Adams, like, you know, you've been there right since the beginning of our journey in founding SEJA. And, you know, obviously I haven't spent as much time with you as Dylan has, and I haven't been on as many long nights that Dylan talks about with you. But what I can say is that of the time that I've spent with you, Adams, like your energy and love and kindness, you know, I just felt always very naturally drawn to you. Like I felt like I could just be comfortable around you, even though like I'm in a context which isn't my own, like a favela, and be somewhere that I don't speak the language. And you know, you've always made me feel like I've been at home, and I really mean that. And I think that very much resembles actually the character and love of the favela actually. And so I'm really interested to hear about now being outside the favela and having moved abroad, you know, how you've carried that love with you. And how it's still a big part of your life. But yeah, super happy to be here.
Super. Thank you for the nice words. No, really, it's just it's a pleasure to be here. Dylan knows. I'm not so fan of speaking and having my face in cameras. And it's actually interesting to reflect on how I got to know SEJA.
Thanks for that. I mean, yeah, we definitely have a long history. But where I wanted to start, I'm just curious. I mean, as we've mentioned, you're from the favela, but you live abroad now. When somebody asks where you're from, what do you tell them?
When anybody asks me where I'm from, for me it's really important to say, and actually I use this in my work now, the organization I work in Norway, because we work a lot with identities and diversity. So having the perspective to people to understand, okay, I'm from Brazil, one thing. I'm from Rio, another thing, right? Because people like, oh yeah, you're from Brazil. Wow, samba, carnival. Wow, so nice. A beach and caipirinhas. And they're like, yeah, fine, good. A lot of stereotypes in there. And then I come like, I'm from Rio. Good. And I say, I'm from the favela. And then people, oh, yeah, the favela, Vidigal, blah, 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 blah. I say, yes, but I'm not from there. I come from Nova Iguaçu. That probably you're never gonna visit, right? Which is the suburb of Rio.
Yeah.
2 hours minimum outside of Souza by public transportation. That's where I'm from, where there is no much public attention, not many NGOs like SEJA. So it's important for me to really state where I come from, so people have an understanding, a perspective about the diversity of favelas, the diversity of Brazil, and also can understand a little bit about how much I had to work and I still have to work to reach some personal goals.
Yeah, I asked that because I wanted to start with the favela because there are so many opinions about it, but it's so important to SEJA. It's the beginning of our journey. It's where we met, it's why we became so inspired to do this work. But you're from one, and I was curious about how you carry that moving forward, and like if it changes the narrative or changes, if the narrative's changing, but how being from a favela, does it affect your identity? Is it something that you carry with you on a daily basis, or anything along those lines? Is kind of where I'm saying a lot, but I just wanted to understand how being from a favela shows up in your day-to-day life.
For me, it's really important to say I'm from the favela. I have no problem saying that, and it's really important for me to state that. But also, it's very important to break some of the stereotypes, right? And then the first thing tell people, it's about that favela is not only in Rio. Many people think that you only find favelas in Rio. And I was reading that actually in the last census, like the statistics. Hey,
Yeah.
okay, help me there. Census.
You're there.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I was
Census.
reading that actually it's
Statistics.
more than 12,000 favelas in Brazil.
Yeah.
So and then it's more than, and this is about like 80% of the Brazilian population that lives in favelas. For me, it's important to say where I'm from. I'm very proud of being a favelado, and usually I try to tell people also about like regain the narrative of being from the favela, right? Because back in the 80s and the 90s, people from the favela would not be proud of being from the favela. A lot of stereotypes from the favela, you are criminal, you have no education, and then I'm very proud also about how like residents of favela uh, reclaim and regain like the narrative of yes, it's okay to be born in a favela. That is not my fault that I'm from there. It's a social problem. There's a historical social problem, housing problem, and then how much of the Brazilian identity and art and culture and comes from the favela. So I'm very proud of saying I'm from favela, but at the same time, when possible, I try to not talk only about like about the criminality from the favelas, about how dangerous it is to be in the favela. I really try to emphasize the importance of the favela for the economy of Brazil, the importance of favela identity and cultural values of festival. Last week, I was sharing some of my colleagues here in Norway, about the Passinho, right? There is a
Yeah.
documentary on Netflix now about Passinho and the story of André, who
Yeah.
actually works as was like
Red
a
Bull
ambassador
produced
for
it.
us also in
Yeah.
Quebra, and
Yeah.
then he's progress in the Passinho, and then he won Red Bull as dancer style, and then he
Exactly.
came to Europe and like how big he is now and how big Passinho is now. But it was not like that when Passinho started in the 2000. So for me, it's really
Yeah.
important to spread uh, the art and like the how rich favela is.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Adams actually along the same lines. I'm thinking because now you're outside the favela or you've moved to a different country. Is there, because obviously having spent a bit of time in favelas, I've recognized so much power in favelas, and I'm wondering, like, do you see it more in your life now, being surrounded people in offices or in day-to-day life? Like, do you see an absence of that power?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat?
An absence of the power. So do you recognize sort of the favela spirit, not where you are? Is that a good way of putting it, Dylan?
Yeah,
Help
okay.
me.
Yes or no? I would say yes or no. Because I'm now in Norway, and then for me, it's really important, no matter where I am, to navigate the city. For example, I'm now living abroad, but since I was 15 in Rio for Nova Iguaçu, I went to drum school in the South Zone. So since I was like 14, 15, I've been navigating the city, right? From the favela, but exposing myself to a lot of like different environments and different people. And I think that's a big portion of myself or my identity. In Norway, I try to do the same, so definitely I could just be surrounded by um, the same type of people, but here I try to navigate the city, explore the city like from north to zone to south, and to understand the dynamics of Oslo, right? So and there is a lot of connection with the favela here. I would say I work visiting schools now, high school, and together with my colleagues, so we have a workshop with youth people, and we talk about identity and diversity and understanding. And I start in a region, very broken region, but I start asking some of the youth if they have ever heard about Brazil. And then I try to collect, okay, what have you heard about Brazil? And then I say, okay, have you ever heard about favela? And for my surprise, almost every time I go to the schools, some of the kids, they have something to say about favela. Some of them have something to say about the music, about funk, about football, and they also know a little bit about the stereotype. And that's because, you know, the favela lifestyle actually is very big in social media. So, and then, you know, like people say Norway is a very cold country, but for me, I mean, if you navigate the city, you find a lot of, you know, art and diversity. So I don't miss that actually. So and then I feel like in Rio, to be honest, I navigate the city here pretty like I navigate in Rio. So I go around and I know people everywhere. So I don't miss that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just your personality. You know everybody.
Mhm.
But I wanted to just again talk a little bit more about the favelas and if you could provide some perspective about what it was like growing up in a favela, what your world was like as a kid. I know that you did a lot of social projects and you know, when did you first get involved? What did that open up for you? I know that you kind of have a funny connection to the Mormon church, which I
Yeah.
if you feel comfortable talking about it because I think it shows how far you went for opportunities and how scarce those opportunities were and really how you made it happen for yourself. And so anything along those lines would be great to hear more about.
Um, Again, it's important to say that the favela I'm from is from Nova Iguaçu. Very small. When I was a kid, there was like not much criminality compared to the way that, you know, the shootings that happened in the 90s in the other favelas around the city. So I always tell people that I grew up in a poor neighborhood, but not surrounded by, like criminality.
Yeah.
So it was like not easy to find the way out of the community because there was like no NGOs, for example. So I had to travel like or ask my mom and friends of my mom to travel hours and hours to go to, an English class that I found for free somewhere, or to go for dance course, or to go into the drum school where I got a scholarship in the South Zone, right? So I needed to navigate like take the train, take the bus, take the
Yeah.
train plus a bus to get in the drum school where I got a scholarship. It was very like famous drum school in Brazil, O Tablado,
Yeah.
and I studied there for 7 years or more. Is also a big portion of my identity and my friends in Rio. But that's the thing. So the class started at 5 p.m. if I'm not wrong, and I needed to leave home at 1 p.m.
Mm.
to
Yeah.
be there in time. And then it was only 2 hours class, and then I was going back home, arriving back home around midnight. And next
Yeah.
morning, I needed to wake up at 6 to go to school. So it was not easy. So I learned to read on the bus, to be very disciplined. But also I started to see how people from other favelas, especially from the one in the South Zone, have more access to everything. And then I these gave me like the motivation to reflect that we needed to, to spread the movement, so that's something that I still try to do here, and I talk a lot of Dylan about this. During the pandemic, for example, all of the support, the food kits, food baskets, was directly to the big favelas in the north zone or in the south zone. And then I was working together with my friends, and SEJA actually helped and donated like to Nova Iguaçu also, like a small portion. So I'm always trying to bring attention to Nova Iguaçu, to Baixada Fluminense, because there's a huge difference on how much one from the south zone favelas can get, and how much one that comes from the north zone favelas or for the favelas in Baixada or in other areas of Brazil can get or have access to. So it was not easy. So sometimes I forget how much I had to work when people give me like compliments. Oh, but you've done this, you've done that, and they're like, yes, but that cost me a lot. Actually, it was not so easy like to learn English. I learned English alone by reading books that my mom brought me from the houses she used to work. So I started like to translate word by word and watch DVDs, Lion King 10 times with English subtitles, without English subtitles, with Portuguese subtitles, without Dirty Dancing. And then when I was like about 17, 19, I paid the private English course with some money that I saved. And then, I had to work a lot to get access to small things that people from other favelas,
Mm.
they don't need to work so much.
Wow. So how old are we talking when you say when you're finding that free English class, which is far away from where you live? Like, how old are you at that point in your life?
Then I was about 17. Yeah.
Yeah, at 17. Wow.
And there was a moment that I had my godfather that lived in downtown Rio. Then sometimes I could sleep over. And when I went to university at PUC Rio, when I got a scholarship, so then I moved to my godfather's place, which was downtown. And then I
Mm.
could see the difference of one that lives like more central located. Because like in a way it was easy, right? Like I needed just to take one bus to go to university. I had to work from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. For 1 year because the school university started at 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I needed to work, find a work that fitted the calendar.
Mm.
But yeah, so yeah.
And I
Yeah, I
echo
mean,
the. Sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
no, it's all you, mate.
I was just going to say, I really echo and hear what you're saying about when, the amount of tourists who have been to Rio that I've seen who have been like, oh, you can walk from one end of the city to the other. And they're thinking, Copacabana to Ipanema, which
Yeah,
is like, and this city is giant. So for anybody listening, the majority of the city is in the North Zone, and it's a huge place.
exactly. So I mean, people forget that Rio is not only the South Zone, right? So and then I mentioned North Zone, but then there is the West Zone, and the West Zone is not only Baja, right?
Mm,
You find favelas in everywhere in Rio,
mm,
but the international visitors, they are only like in a very small portion of the city.
mm.
Yeah, it's definitely levels to the different types of like uh, marginalization and lack of access and lack of opportunities. Um, I
I'm very
know
happy
that.
for one thing, and I must say because there was one thing that when I met Dylan for the very first time, and then we had this conversation actually, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very proud of being the board of SEJA ACE, because these conversations I have all the time. And then when SEJA started to not only be focused in one area, right? But then when we started to spread to other regions of Rio, like to other favelas in Rio, in the North Zone, when the pandemic came, and then Seja also support like Baixada, also Nova Iguaçu, and then we went like to the north of Brazil. Then I was like, yes, we went to Bahia because I was like, okay, yes, it's happening, right? And then I was like, we taking serious this, and for me, it's also very important to say this here because I'm very proud that Seja uh, has this in mind.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, so much of what we've done as an organization is rooted in the conversations we've had with the people, and you're around us, and you're definitely one of those people that have inspired us to go further and find areas that are often overlooked. So, my last question for you, before I have more questions, actually,
Okay.
is you've been on the both sides social projects. Like you've definitely worked in social projects, and you've been helped from social projects. So I just wanted to ask, what's something you've learned from being helped by a social project, and what's something that you've learned from helping others?
Oh wait, can you repeat something I learned from?
Helping others. So in the social project context, if there's a specific thing that you've learned about being helped by a social project or a social initiative or engaging with that type of person when you were younger, or something along those lines, and then something you've learned from helping others by being in that position of kind of paying it forward.
Um, I would say listen to others. Is something it's like literally listening to what is important for the community. Uh, and actually, I was reading, Paulo Freire. I'm actually reading like an article
Yeah.
in English about like the theory and the work of Paulo Freire, but listen to others instead of like just coming to a community and thinking that you have the solution for them, right? I mean, each community have different like needs. So then working like with different projects, and then different places. Even though I work like in different favelas, that people would think that every favela has the same need. Is not like that, you know. Some favela has like, you know, the need for English class maybe. Other favela people have like more needs to art and education, extracurricular activities. So listen to the needs of people from that specific locations. One thing that I learned by working, not coming and like saying, yeah, okay, so we have these for you guys, you know, like coming with like the package of like the solution of the victory, but listening, and then collaborating to find the best solution for that specific community. Um, and then being, you know, myself, uh, a participant, a beneficiary from a social project for many years, I would say that I learned to be very grateful and to really appreciate diversity also. I mean, I was exposed to many people from different backgrounds. For example, going for the drum school where I got the scholarship. I mean, I was exposed to people from different backgrounds, right? You know, people who are like middle class, some people that were poorer than I, people that was like millionaires, but in that environment, we are all the same. So then I think appreciating like diversity and learning from each other.
Yeah. I mean, and that like so much of what you're saying there in terms of like listening to the community, and you're from the community, you grew up in the community, and you're still saying when I go to a different community, I want to listen to that community before implementing something. And like imagine like somebody like George and I that came from the UK or the United States, and like I'm going to play tennis, I'm going to give English classes, but still people that are like that local are still saying no, like even I need to listen.
No,
I
I
think
like
that's
to listen. I mean, I think where I'm from Nova Iguaçu, and when I go there, people are like very proud. Or, oh yeah, you've done with this, you've done that. I'm like, no, I haven't done anything. You know, my post graduation thesis. I'm not sure if I shared this with you before, but you know, it's about community memory, right? So where I use the graffiti as a tool for
yeah,
what that self self-esteem, uh
self-esteem.
right, the self-esteem, right? So then I mean, so we work together. So I created together with some community residents like the project, you know. We had a workshop together. I tried to motivate them and I got some motivation from them, and then we created the graffiti murals. There was 10 graffiti murals based on that memory from that location, and I learned a lot from listening to their stories. You know,
Yeah,
so we worked together. It was not something like, oh, I've done this. Like, no,
Mm,
we've done this together. So this
mm,
is really important. And I asked, I remember one of the process, part of the process was to ask, do you guys think that this is something you guys want in this community? That having the graffiti is something that is valuable for you? You know, but my project was like, okay, bring the graffiti because that was what I thought was good to bring self-esteem. And then, but I asked, do you want this
yeah,
here? Do you think this is valuable for your community? Can we do this together? And they say, yes, we can do this together. So then I'm very
yeah.
happy actually. The graffiti is still there.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate all those insights, George. I was just wondering if you had any closing thoughts or ideas or anything that's at the forefront of your mind.
Um, no, I mean, ultimately, I just want to say thank you, Adams. I mean, not just for today, but you know, for the past. I mean, Dylan and I are joking at the moment that we don't know when we founded SEJA, somewhere between 6 and 10 years ago. But no, but for the past 6 to 10 years, and for today, I just want to say thank you. I think that to hear from you firsthand the extent of how far you had to go to get yourself opportunity is truly inspiring, and it's why we started this journey. And you know, I just hearing your say it again, just it keeps that fire burning, you know, that we've had right from the beginning. And so I just want to thank you for your inspiration.
Oh, thank you, George, and thank you too, because I must say, you guys inspire me. And then that's the thing, George. We didn't spend much time together, but yeah, I had so many deep conversations with Dylan,
Mm,
and I'm very proud because you two really listen to the story of favela, right? I mean, there are many projects in Brazil, and Dylan knows because I've told him this several times. That comes many international visitors and white people, and comes to Brazil to favelas as like we're gonna save you, right? And for me, it was really important before I get involved to in ACE SEJA that was not the point with you guys, right? There was like the point was like, no, okay. Actually, Dylan hates, and I don't know about you, but he hates actually when he needs to be seen, right? Like he needs to show his face as like I'm the co-founder of SEJA. He hates this. He wants to give SEJA wants to give people from the favelas how to say the the light to
Yeah.
shine. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But and I don't like to be also in front of the cameras. For me to be here is kind of some work.
We're all working on.
Because even though I'm from the favela, I want people that haven't experienced what I've experienced yet to have the voice, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm very proud of. I'll try to do. I mean, try to empower people, young people, to be safe enough to be themselves and like to speak up for themselves. So I mean, so I'm very proud that Seja has managed to actually do this. Like we're not like we guys. I don't see you guys like two white saviors from abroad, leaving the lifestyle of a white person in Brazil that you could just go around and drink caipirinhas everywhere and live in a luxury apartment maybe, but navigating the city and learning with the locals and experience actually how life in the favela is and understanding. So I'm very proud that you two are there and then doing a very good work. And I'm proud to tell people all the time in Norway that, yeah, I'm a board member of SEJA. You can follow us on social media. Yeah, that's what we're doing. And then show Passinho and talk about Quebra Festival and show the documentary on YouTube, which is really beautiful. The Unseen Favela, Break the Stereotype, if I'm not wrong. That's the name.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of everything
Yeah.
you've done together.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate those words. I think that that's a perfect place to end. And just remember that you have a really important voice and important for people to hear in your journey and your story. It's an inspiration for many people. It's an inspiration for us. And it's definitely a story that people look up to. And so we're so grateful for your time. And yeah, we'll be in touch.